Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Irv Homer Show, broadcasting from irvhomer.com. And we welcome once again, returning to our television camera, Pearl Polto. Pearl is the author of the book called Credit Lifeline 2002, Easy Guide to Good Credit 2006, and just an expert when it comes to the nasty word called credit. Well, credit is not nasty if you know what you're doing. And unfortunately, many attorneys don't know what credit is, and many people just have no idea what credit is. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, the lady here tonight will answer your questions on our chat room. If you have any questions, get on board right now, because usually the chat room fills up. But Pearl Polto, I'm going to turn the program over to you because you're dynamite. I saw you on CNN8 this week. Was it this week when I saw you on CNN8?
Yes, it was.
And you just burn up the lines. And folks, this is serious stuff, because there's a lot of misinformation giving out about credit reporting, how to clear your credit, the power that the credit card company has. And Pearl, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
All right, that's good enough. I'm so glad to be back here because this is educating a lot of people out there. Tonight we're going to separate the facts from the fiction when it comes to clearing your credit. Many people think that you have to wait 7 years and you're dead. Let's say if you have a charge off, a repossession, anything against your credit report. If you think that you have to wait 7 years, the facts from the fiction is you do not have to. The minimum is 30 days. Yeah, you can clear up your report in 30 days. This is no magic. They call me the miracle worker. I don't perform miracles. This is the laws. This is the laws out there to make you understand before you email me or contact me with your questions. So you understand the procedures with it. If you owe a creditor and you cannot afford to pay the bill and you want to know what's going to happen next, well, here's what happens. It goes through steps. The creditor wants to call up his accounting and says, so-and-so cannot pay this bill. The accounting says, charge it off. Write it as a tax deduction off their income taxes. Now, the creditor got paid, so they're happy. You're not happy yet because now the creditor turns it over to a bill collector. Now the bill collector starts harassing you, but you do not owe a bill collector. The bill collector is the third party. The creditor's happy, the bill collector's happy because he's going to try to collect money off of you, and that bill collector could be an attorney. At the same time, the only one that still has a problem is you when it comes to your credit report. Now you come to me. Because now, or any kind of company, you come to me because you're saying, I'm trying to get a mortgage, I'm trying to raise my credit score, and am I debt for 7 years, or do I have to pay this high interest rate? The answer is no. Let's separate the facts from the fiction, because the time it comes to me, or you can do it yourself, all you have to do is dispute it with the credit bureau. There's a section 611 under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. When you dispute it, the credit bureau's job is not just to make out credit reports. Their job is to investigate it with the original creditor, not with the bill collector. But the original creditor doesn't have your account anymore. That's the magic. He doesn't have your account anymore. He sold it. But the law states under Section 611, if the creditor does not respond back to that credit bureau in 30 days, that account has to be deleted. No magic, no miracles. So if you owed $5, $5,000, or even $5 million, it's not saying you don't owe the debt, but legally, you're actually scot-free and you can get your credit back in order, you can get your refinancing. There's a lot of things you can do when it comes to your credit report. There's no magic in it. You can do it yourself, or as I said, tonight we're going to have a special, really special offer because I always say I can't take on the whole world as clients, but tonight I may have to take on the whole world as clients because we have a credit problem, we have a credit crunch in our country, and if you need help with your credit, I'm the person to see. And not that I have to pat myself on the back, but as Irv said, he's patting myself on the back, but as Irv said, attorneys, I'm a paralegal, but it has nothing to do with credit laws because credit laws are found in Congress, not in law school. So when he said attorneys do not know credit, if you have a credit problem, attorney is the last person to go see because they're going to tell you to file bankruptcy if you're hurting. And if you file bankruptcy, that's the law too. It has to stay on your credit report from 7 to 10 years. Attorneys only know bankruptcy laws, not credit laws, because credit laws are found in Congress under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And there's no magic to attorneys, and sometimes they're the bill collectors. If you live in a state if you live in a state that is exempt, and exempt, what I mean is, if you live, let's say, in Pennsylvania or Florida or Wyoming, that means they cannot attach your wages if you're owe on the bill collectors, or you owe on the creditors, or they charged off your account. So there's a lot that they can do, but there you have more power in this credit crunch than they do. Straighten out your credit. I always say at seminars, I could take you to the water, but I can't force you to drink it. Now it's going to be up to you, the education that I'm giving you. You can do two things. I charge a fee for my service. Of course I do, but I'm not going to charge it tonight as high as I normally go, and it's not really high. Anybody out there that really wants to correct their credit, or they're trying to raise their mortgage, or they're trying to get a mortgage or a refinance, mortgage companies will come to me to say, I'm sending you a client. Raise their credit score, send it back to me, and then that's how they get their refinance. So there's no magic in this. As a lot of people thinks it is. So, but tonight, at the very end, I'm going to give a special price because of Irv Homer, and to take advantage of it, because it's not going to happen again with it.
Now, Pearl, the information that you're giving out here is extremely interesting, because people are confused about credit, and we hear that the banks can't extend credit now, and the automobile dealers are having difficulty extending credit. How much of intercredit is based that we don't know about between banks and between that? I mean, they got a real problem, because the government is the biggest credit. They borrow money like mad.
They're borrowing money, but the biggest problem is our banks. And here's why. The banks is, when I talked about charge-offs, if the bank charges off this account, you can't pay a bill, and I'm the bank, and I say to you, I don't want your $100 anymore, because you say, I can't afford to pay the $100. When the bank all of a sudden goes to their accounting, goes to the state, goes to the government by saying, we got to charge off this account. They want to charge off the account because they're getting the whole $10,000, $20,000, what you owe them. The bottom line is, though, if they did this to 100 people or 100,000 people nationwide, what's going to happen? They're going to go under. The bank is going to go under, and somebody has to pull them out. So it's our government pulling them out, or another country pulling them out. And credit is going to other countries right now because the banks are going under. I can predict what banks are going to go under. And they're saying, well, now the banks, the FTC is going to raise this and raise that. I can predict. I predicted 20 years ago what banks were going to go under back then, that people never even assumed. Mellon Bank. Or there's so many well-known banks that went under because they charged off all these people's credit cards, credit, and now the people are hurting, but we can turn the tables around. I can't turn Washington around, but I can turn the credit, the consumer's problems around and find a solution for it, and that's the good news.
Why do people wait until the last minute, Pearl? At what point should the red flag go up in your personal life when it's time to call Pearl Polto and say, Pearl, I think I'm getting into trouble. How can I prevent it?
You know, I used to say, when I did my seminars, I never blamed the consumer. I used to blame the creditors, because I would sit there, I watch commercials on television, and I see them eating their dinner, and the phone rings, and everybody's avoiding the telephone. And everybody says, oh, I know who it is. It's the mortgage company, it's the credit card company, and I can't afford to pay it, so let's avoid them. You can't avoid the creditors. You know you have a problem when you know you're going to be late those 30 days. And if you're going to be late those 30 days, there are solutions. Pick up the phone. Call up the creditor to say, I can't pay this $100. There's a crisis here going on. They will. If you ask for a supervisor, they will work with you. And sometimes the mortgage company will give you a 3-month or 6-month suspension of not paying them until you're back on your feet, especially now. So if you're back on your mortgage, you definitely want to call them. But if the average person is afraid, you're afraid of the unknown, and you don't want to lose nothing. And if you don't want to lose nothing, what are you going to do? You're in denial, you walk away from it, but it's going to haunt you sooner or later in your life, and that's the that's the time people comes to me. But now people with good credit are having problems because now they can't pay their bills with all this things happening in Washington, our stock markets, and now they're coming to me by saying, hey, I have good credit, but I won't be able to pay these bills on time. What do I do? Well, then I advise them, you either refinance or you call up these creditors. Don't be afraid. And you say to them, I'm paying $200 a month. I only want to pay $25 a month, and if you cannot accept it, I'm going to file bankruptcy. So that's what it's done.
In light of the fact, I remember years ago I had a piece of property in California, and it was hairy times there. And I contacted the mortgage company, and I made a deal with them and paid only the interest and none of the principal on the mortgage. And now it's a common thing. If you read some of these estates that are for sale in the Los Angeles Times, nobody pays the house off. They pay the interest on the note.
Yes, they pay the interest off, and then what happens when they want to sell it? I mean, so a lot of people,
But it maintains their credit in good standing, or does it?
It does maintain their credit, and that's what you want, and that's what you want to tell the mortgage company. Years ago, our grandparents or our parents, they said, pay off your mortgage, pay off everything, and you'll be scot-free. You didn't understand, though. You didn't have a cash flow then. Back then, you were fine. You didn't have any credit cards. You paid your mortgage off, and everybody had to pay their car off, and everybody thought, well, but they were penniless. There was no cash flow in the family. You need the cash flow today. You need to owe that bank. It's income taxes, tax write-offs. You need to owe that car for all this. It's better because when you're dead and gone, that bill's still going to be there and you have no cash flow. So don't worry about your credit cards. Don't worry about paying your mortgage off, even if you have the money. And this is where people make some mistakes when it comes to their mortgages. Everybody has an intellect by saying we have to pay it off. We have to pay off this mortgage, or we have the money. I know people that had $100,000 and said, first thing we're going to do is pay off the mortgage. Now they're penniless because they can't pay their other bills, and yet they had that whole $100,000. They could get a refinance, a home equity loan through this, but now they're afraid because they're starting right back where they started again.
We're talking with Pearl Polto. She's the author of many, many books on credit. And you will be able to ask questions on our chat room. Don't be bashful, ladies and gentlemen. You're anonymous. We don't know who you are. Pearl doesn't know who you are. And the worst thing you can do is ignore it when you have a financial problem. A lot of people get in trouble because they're embarrassed. They figure they made a mistake. They don't want the neighbors to know. They don't answer the telephone. They don't answer the door. They're afraid the sheriff is going to be there.
Yes.
The whole 9 yards, and it trickles down. And the deadbeats, believe me, deadbeats are not afraid of mortgage companies. Deadbeats are not afraid of the sheriff. It's you innocent people out there who have never encountered anything of this in your life that suddenly find yourself, why am I in this position? How do I get out of it? And where do I turn to for help? Nobody's going to say to you, Pearl especially, not going to say, well, why did you do this and why did you do that?
No.
That's not the way Pearl works. She works with you to get you out of the mess you're in and educate you that you can protect yourself and your credit. Don't forget, you would not want anybody to insult your name. Well, your credit is your name.
Exactly.
If you insult your credit, you're insulting your name, and that's what's vitally important. Pearl Polto's our guest. We'll go to the chat room. Pearl, you can read the question and answer it yourself. I'm just lazy.
One question is, I was hospitalized in August. The bill for the emergency room was $885. The deductible on my health insurance is $5,000. Wow. I don't have the money to pay this bill now. Should I try to negotiate a lower price, or is it better to make lower monthly payments? Should I get any negotiating price in writing? Well, first of all, good question, and high deductible, $5,000. But there's two things you should do. Negotiate, because they will put this against your credit if they have to hire a bill collector, so don't avoid it. The second thing is, and make a loan payment. Let's suppose they said no. Let's suppose you were paying, and they said you have to pay $200 a month, and they said no. Well, here's the answer. Mail it anyway. Mail the $100, mail the $25, and if it's cashed, well, there's your answer. That's your contract that they accepted it, and then from now on, the next check, you write with a little letter, as per, here's $25 more until the balance is paid. Trust me, any doctors or any hospitals will accept it because they do not want to hire the bill collectors. They do want their money. The people aren't paying doctors today because of this high medical cost. And you don't want it to affect, if you don't have a credit problem, this is one way you could have a credit problem just by avoiding it and saying no to it. So yeah, there's people out there, especially, I'm getting many clients with doctor bills, medical bills on their credit report. And it all could be removed, which I do remove it. But if you're ahead of the game now, stay ahead of the game, write them a letter and say, accept this money or else, but do something about it. And that's the good news with it.
Would it pay when you buy an automobile or run into a situation such as this a person does? When you buy a car, say, what are the rules of credit in buying your car, financing it through GMAC or financing it through Ford Co. or financing it through something else? the credit is almost as important, the financing is more important than the price of the car.
Exactly, but you have to remember, when you're buying a car, the car dealers do not know credit either. And they don't know the system either. All they know is they want to sell you a car, and after they sell you a car, then they want to actually finance it through their bank, because that's where they're making their commission. They don't understand it. Now, here's the bad news of that, because as we said the last time I was on the show, if you go on a Monday and go to 5 car lots, your score is dropping because your credit score, every time they're pulling up a copy of your credit report. So you may have good credit and think you have bad credit because you started with an 800 and you're now down to 600 and 500 because you went car shopping. So credit is important no matter what you do. It used to be your Social Security number and your birth date, and now it's all credit scores that people are doing. It's all credit scores.
One of the things I know in dealing with the Internal Revenue Service is if you can prove good faith.
Right.
How important is good faith when you get financially strapped like this person is, Pearl?
Well, in good faith.
How do you not hide from these telemarketers that bang you over the head on telephone calls day and night?
Or telemarketers, if people understood where they came from.
I call them telemarketers.
Well, no, they are telemarketers. They're coming from the credit bureau. They are coming from the credit bureaus. They're giving your name out to people with good credit. And this is the sad part, because now there's lawsuit cases now pending, class action cases because of all this. But the telemarketers is not your problem, because you could always say no. It's what's appearing on your credit report. Everybody, and then another thing is you should look at your credit report every 6 months. Now, do not go on the website to go to freecreditreport.com, free this, free that, because there's the gimmick there as well. You don't understand it because you don't understand credit, but you have to become a member of their company in order to get that free report. And then you have to pay a fee in order to get that free report. But the credit bureaus will give you a free copy of your credit report, the 3 credit bureaus. They will give you a free copy. So don't what you're seeing on the television commercials, free credit report. Don't fall for it, because they will take it out of your credit card. They will do something, especially if they asked you for a credit card. They're trying to take it out. The other problem that people are having is when if somebody asks you for your Social Security number, don't give it. What they're doing is a reason to pull up your credit report if they asked for your Social Security number. In the last 6 months, it's getting worse, because now they're asking you for your date of birth, and they're pulling up your report from your date of birth, not your Social Security. Now, we all heard on the news, and we hear a lot on the news, this identity theft. We just heard it the other night in our local city. Identity theft is it could come from the credit bureaus. Why is it so simple? Why is it so easy for somebody to steal your identity, go to a store? Now, why can't these people in a store have laws and sections by saying, hey, who are you? Let me see your ID. No, because they're getting paid. They don't care. So these are the laws that Congress have to put into action to stop the identity theft, because it's going to go on eternally unless they put a stop to it. And it's going to go on and on where everybody in this country, 1 out of 4 people has credit problems. You can't be embarrassed if you have a credit problem, because 1 out of 4 people has a credit problem. I always say I want to shake the hand of a person who never had a credit problem, never will. Can't do it. Even Donald Trump has credit problems and he can't reverse it. But if you have a credit problem, you can reverse it. Again, as I'm going to repeat, there's no magic to it.
As a result of you being on the program last week, Pearl, I was at a little party on Saturday night, and a gentleman came up to me and said, Herb, I watched the show and I saw Pearl and I was impressed. And I said, what's your problem? He said, I co-signed a student loan for my daughter, and she skipped. The dangerous, Pearl, of co-signing, and who does the credit card company or who does the debtor go after?
That's a good question. I'm so glad you brought that up.
The daughter who skipped, who may have a job, who has to give her a Social Security number, or at what point does the father, the co-signer, get nailed and say, you got to pay that debt off or your credit's gone? His credit is exemplary. He did it in good faith.
Anyone out there, I don't care if you're a mother, your son, your daughter, your father, your mother, don't ever, 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 and I don't care how close you are to them, don't ever, ever, ever co-sign for anyone. And here's why. Sometimes you have to pay the price, and a lot of my clients pay the price, but here's why, though. Around over 5 years ago, I had a client. And that client contacted me crying her eyes out. Well, this client was 70-some years old. And what happened was her daughter co-signed, and she co-signed for a house. The daughter didn't make the payments. Now they were taking the house from the mother. And this is a true story in Florida. They were taking the house from the mother because the daughter, she co-signed for the daughter. So ever since that, I tell everybody, don't co-sign. And here's what happens when you do co-sign. You think you're doing a good deed. You think you're doing your daughter, your son, your mother, your father. But as you're co-signing, now let's suppose their job runs out or they get laid off and they can't pay that bill. Now you have really great credit, but your daughter has bad credit. Now she can't pay this bill and she's 30 days late. Well, guess who has bad credit too? You. Because now it's on your credit report and your daughter's credit report, but your daughter is too embarrassed to call you to say, I haven't made a payment in 30 days, what do I do? Now, if you pay, guess what? You both have a credit problem and you're too embarrassed. So sometimes I get calls and they'll say, can you do my daughter's? Can you do my son? What happened is I co-signed, I couldn't pay it. Now she's got a credit problem and I'm so embarrassed. And I hear this every day. They both have to suffer with the credit. So you may want to, you care for somebody, but the best way of caring for somebody is to teach them to be responsible. To teach them, get your credit back in shape, get your own loan. I will show you how, and not do it for them. Because if something should happen, you have a credit problem, and they can come after you now. Besides, if they can come after your son or your daughter, now they can come after you. Because they have a problem, they didn't tell you. And it's too late when you go to your son or go to your daughter to say, why didn't you tell me you had this problem? I could have called them. But you see, the embarrassment is there already. And this is what stops them from coming to you to start off with. So don't ever co-sign, no matter how much you think you care. I've heard some horror stories throughout even my business. I've heard horror stories, and they're not happy stories.
If you have any questions for Pearl Polto about credit, you can get on our chat room. It's available. Pearl, something happened many years ago as a result of you being here. I had 3 bars in Philadelphia at one time, and I borrowed $10,000 on the third one that I had bought. And this is before fair credit reporting, and God bless Pearl Polto. I don't think you were born then. And what happened was I get this hysterical phone call one Saturday night at the bar. This gentleman started screaming and shouting. I said, wait a minute, calm down. What's your problem? He said, I've got a $10,000 judgment against my property. I said, for what? He says, it's your judgment. I borrowed the money and I put my property up for collateral. Mm-hmm. Well, his name, poor gent's probably dead because he didn't have a heart attack that night. He probably had one afterward. His name was Honer. So the recorder of judgments or whoever was responsible, Pathanter, looked up and saw his property was clear in Northeast Philadelphia, and they put the judgment on his property. I got no judgment against my property. And the poor guy had, I think, 2 days to make settlement, and he had and here this 10 grand popped up. He couldn't get the mortgage for his business, which is a property on Columbia Avenue, and it was hell to pay. How many times does this happen where they put liens or judgments against one, and you innocently don't know it?
The burden of proof, it's not like a legal action. The burden of proof now is on you and not the mortgage company and everything else. They put the burden of proof on you. Sometimes it could be complicated. Sometimes it could be easy. If it's on a credit report, that's easy because the person doesn't have to do all the legwork. All they have to do is contact in writing the credit bureaus to say have it removed. But if it's on a title, then they have to do the legwork. They have to go down to say, hey, you have to remove this. You got the wrong person. We'll prove it. So the burden of proof is on you when it comes to this. And that's the sad part when it comes to the bar or any kind of place. The judgment of proof is on you. And the reason why the judgment of proof is on you, you have to understand again, mortgage companies, bankers, even attorneys know nothing about credit. So they don't understand it. So how can they correct it if they don't understand how the system is working? Mortgage companies, an example, does not understand credit. I'm amazed how many people work for banks, and even my own bank. They do not understand credit rights, where I have many clients and bank tellers and everything else, because they don't know. Your attorney now could go to, let's say, my bank and say, I want to put a freeze on this account. Well, the bank teller is petrified. Sure, you're an attorney. You know what you're doing. So let's freeze this account. Is it legal? No, it's not legal. But they did it. So it's going to be up to you as the consumer to unfreeze it, or to hire an attorney to unfreeze it, to say, hey, I got rights here, they're not supposed to do this, I'm in a non-exempt state, the attorney did this illegally, and it's still, the burden of proof is on you. This is why in today's world everybody has to be educated. When I say everybody, everybody has to be educated in the nature of law to understand credit rights. It's not so complicated as people think, but as you said earlier, you can't sit back. You got to do something when it hits you, or it's going to hurt you.
Some of the books that are available that you've published, Pearl, how can people get copies of them and read it? It's simple language, even I understand
it. You know, when I appeared on your show in 1989, I wrote my first book. It was called In America Is Bad Credit a Prison Term? And I'm not sure if you remember it, but the first thing you said when you opened the book is, wow, I can read this in everyday language, and this is pure English. When I write my books, I write books as if I'm the consumer, and I would understand it, because a consumer does not understand hard work, banks, finance companies, insurance, whatever. And like mortgage companies will sit you down and they come out with all these big words. So I try to write the books in pure English. Credit Lifeline, my book Credit Lifeline, I put even letters in back the book where people can actually copy them. And I said to myself in my last book, what would I want if I was a consumer and didn't know nothing? I'm in the dark about credit, and what would I want to happen? Well, I would want somebody to do it for me, naturally. But if somebody couldn't do it for me because I couldn't afford them, what else would I want? I would want to know and copy something where I can do the work. I do the work for the clients. I take on the whole United States. I have clients from here to California. And I always used to say I can't take the whole world on as clients, but I do. Now I do, because of this credit crunch. My fee is not high. I mean, they have to do is call my toll-free number, or they can do it themselves.
Number.
My toll-free is 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D, 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D. You call up and you say, I want to become a client, send me out your credit information package. That quick, it'll be sent out to you. But right now, you can answer the questions. Right now, you're doing your homework, you're listening, you're getting educated. And this is the key. You are getting educated, where a lot of people are not going to knock on your door, but we're knocking on your door to say, this education, if this could be taped, I do seminars, we tape it, we sell the tapes at the seminar, but you're getting a live seminar actually right here, right today.
You have a question for Pearl Polto, get on our chat room, and we'll be more than glad to have Pearl answer the question. I have two questions, Pearl. We're talking about private credit cards and stuff like that. What type of government agency that you owe money to can affect your credit?
Government agency, like the IRS?
IRS, or
student
taxes,
loans.
or student loans, or...
Everything could be removed from a credit report. Everything is exempt. Like, let's say in the state of Pennsylvania, if you're in Florida or Wyoming or different states, everything is exempt where they can't touch you, except the IRS, student loans, and child support. If you have an IRS, you negotiate. If you have a child support, you negotiate. If you have anything that has to do with the government, do not sweep them under the carpet. Negotiate, even if you pay them $10, because these are the people that can attach your wages. And they're the only people, even in non-exempt states. And non-exempt states is, if you live in a state that the law states you're not allowed to do it, they are still allowed, the IRS especially, the child support, and your student loan. The student loan's a little bit tough right now on a lot of people, but you know what? It does happen, it can happen, and do not fall victim to it. Do something.
The last figure that I got before the casinos opened up in the state of Pennsylvania, Pearl, was that people in the Delaware Valley area owe the Atlantic City Casino $600 million.
And that could be a person owing that too.
That could be one person. Well, no one to my friend, maybe in the $50 bracket. But how do the casinos collect their money, and how can it affect your credit if you ignore them? Do they sell the debt? What do they do?
Yes, that's a good question, and that I have the answer to that one, because I do have a lot of clients from Atlantic City, from Vegas. And what they do is, but I'm not going to tell you, you can't do it because I'm telling you. There's ways of doing it. Right. If you, let's say, took a credit from, let's say, Atlantic City of $5,000, and you have the resources, and you're saying, I want to take a loan out for $5,000, and you didn't pay them. Yes, they do the same thing. They can hire a bill collector, and the bill collector can come after you. And what happens if you don't pay them? Nothing. The casino charges it off. And I'm just saying 5,000. It could be 500,000. It could be 50,000. And yes, it's the same method. Anything with credit is the same level when it comes to the law. If you just use your common sense to say, well, what if this? Same thing. What if the casino? Same thing. What if a doctor? It's the same ruling. It all affects the same way, and it all affects your credit report the same way, and it all could be removed the same way. That's the good news with it.
Is it legal for the casinos to be in the credit card company business? You're not getting any value.
I mean,
if I buy a car and I finance the car, I get a car. If I get a mortgage, I get a house. If I get a television set, I get a television set. I go to a casino and want a $10,000 line of credit. What are they giving me?
They're giving you $10,000
The opportunity to lose money.
That's it. You just said it. The opportunity, but you could gain money. You can gain money, and you can take it off as a tax write-off at the end of the year. Now, you can take that loss as a tax write-off at the end of the year.
But this is something I wanted you segue right into it. Speaking to a fella yesterday who won $7,000 at the casinos.
Right, and he's got to pay taxes on it.
And, well, it's affecting something personal, a pension or something, because his income now is a little too... I said, well, did you save the losses? He says, well, no, I didn't keep a record of it. I said, well, the casino tracks you, your wins and losses. Can you request from the casino on my card, because the casinos track your wins and losses, and get a statement from them? Maybe he lost more than $7,000, so he has no declared income.
He probably did.
How important is it to keep those casino wins and losses, even though it may be a couple $100? And
if income tax comes and you're a gambler at any casino, yes, you call up the casino and you say, I want a printout of everything I lost, because even though you may have won 10,000, you may have lost 50,000 through the year. So you do want a record of that, and that's valuable because that's for your income taxes, so it's a balance. A lot of people, and a couple of my clients would say, oh, it's only 5,000, I won this, I have to pay taxes, I didn't pay it. You know what, that 5,000 could be a lot of money in somebody else's pocket, so they do keep a record with your cards that you put in the machine, so that's your feedway to give to your accounting at the end of the year to say, here's what I lost, it's balancing off, so it can't affect you. Because if you didn't do it, it will affect you.
I don't know why I have so many questions and our callers don't, but we'll get to our chat room. This is from, you can handle.
All right, this is from John. John from Clementon, New Jersey. My father passed away last March. I'm a junior bill collector. Bill collectors have called my house for medical bills and hospital bills, still unpaid. Should I be concerned about my credit because of this? And by the way, I was dedicated WWDB when you were a listener there. Overwhelmed to hear you again. John, you live in a state that I don't like. Sorry to say. And I love the state because of the shore and all. But New Jersey is not an exempt state. And what I mean by that is, if you work for a company, the bill collector, because of New Jersey not being an exempt state, can attach your wages if the bill was like super high.
Even though it was for his father, Pearl?
If it's for his father and he was the end results. In other words, my father passed away, I'm a junior, bill collectors call my house. So your father, who took the bills over? In Jersey, what you have to do, don't contact the bill collectors, but document everything. Document it, even if you have to document it with a, let's say, a tape recorder. Your father, you are not responsible for your father's bills or your mother's bills. But if the bill collectors, what they'll say to you is, you have to pay the bill. No, you don't. But if you lived in Jersey and it was your bill, yes, you would have to pay something. They would attach your wages. But since it's your father or even your mother, you don't have to pay. And what you do is you let the bill collector know, and here's what you say to the bill collector. If you call my house again, and I hope you're writing this down, under the Fair Debt Collection Act, do not call here again. I'm going to put this in writing because now I will turn this over to the Federal Trade Commission and to an attorney for a lawsuit case. So many people, and the reason why they do this, and here's why the medical field does this with the bill collectors, because they're hoping you don't know the laws, they're hoping you're naive, they're hoping there's an estate, and they're hoping that you'll gladly pass this on.
Out of guilt because of that.
Out of guilt because your father owed the bill. I was on a show one time on the Channel 9 in New York, and it was a live show, and somebody called in, and they said, I just paid a $10,000 bill for my husband. So they said, is this legal? I said, no, not if it was in your husband's name. So right on the air, live, we called up the company. We called up the credit card company, and we asked them right on the air, why did you take this $10,000? And they said, we didn't take it, they offered it. But they're not going to return it, they're not going to give it back. So when it comes to anybody out there, husband, wife, daughter, whatever, if it's your bill and it's somebody else's bill, then I would suggest, here's what I'm going to suggest, don't pay it. Don't pay it to the point. And that's what you have to do.
Okay, John, we have any other questions on the chat room? We're taking your questions for Pearl Polto. Pearl, when you get nailed by, say, one of these, quote, legitimate bill collectors,
right,
what about the penalties and interest that they add on it? Are they negotiable? I mean,
no. Let me, everybody, when I get calls and they say, here's a bill, and my interest rate isn't curing. Well, if you owed the bill for 6 months later, and they're giving you interest, why are you worrying about the interest? Why are you worrying about the interest charges if you're not going to pay the bill anyway? So why would you worry about if they raised it to 21% or 50%? You're not going to pay it anyway. So, and it's the bill collector. You're not going to pay the bill collector anyway. So why would you even worry about the interest on it? And it's amazing to me, if a person doesn't pay, don't worry about the $10 that's charged on it if you're not going to pay the $100. Let's remove the whole thing. So don't worry about apples and oranges when it doesn't even match on a credit report.
Now, my favorite agency, the Dopey Homer in his broadcast career decides to take on the Internal Revenue Service.
Boy, do I remember that.
It was easier for me, I think, to take on the Al-Qaeda than it was to take them on. But once they realized, that there was a certain amount of credibility to my argument, and that I was standing up for what I thought to be what was America, discovered that there's a lot of things that government and laws have to protect you, the consumer.
Yes.
That you don't know, and they're not going to tell you about it.
No, they're not. They're not going to knock on your door.
They're not going to tell you about it. So doing research with the tax movement in the 80s, when I was really involved heavy in it, there's a thing known as the innocent spouse defense. And many men, women, and married couples, the husband says, "Oh, give me the tax return, honey, I'll fill it out." They fill out a joint return, they sign the wife's name, mail it in.
Okay.
Well, then the husband died. Now the wife gets a bill from the Internal Revenue Service. Says, "What the hell is this? I don't know what it is." Well, your husband, you filled a return, you signed it. No, he signed it. Well, prove that you never paid any of the bills. So she would have to go through all the checkbooks and show that every bill was paid by the husband, that she knew nothing about it. She handled another bill. She handled the house. She raised the kids. She did this. She did the other thing. There's one scumbag lawyer, who I won't mention his name, who built up a real estate portfolio, taking advantage of the innocent spouse defense in the Internal Revenue. Is there anything in innocent spouse defense when it comes to credit other than the IRS? Now, I don't know whether it's still part of the IRS code. I've decided that let them go their way and I go my way.
Well, that's the best thing you ever did.
No,
that's
it
the best
isn't.
thing you ever did.
I like to aggravate.
Well, the IRS is pretty strict, though.
We have opened up a school for IRS rehabilitation officers. So any of you guys out there, our school is still open.
Let me tell you, when it comes to credit and spouses, I don't know how many times I have to say this. If you're married or getting married, separate yourself. Do not have married couples. Don't go on with your husband. Don't go on with your wife. Get a separate credit card for each one. Because you're going to be responsible for him, he's going to be responsible for you, and at the end, if you get divorced or death, you're going to have to pay the price of his bad credit, vice versa, of your bad credit. So separate yourself when it comes to credit cards. Don't think that joint thing is going to, help you. It's going to hurt you at the end, and that's so important to married couples today. And I tell them today, when they say, well, we have a joint credit card, separate yourself. Call up the credit card company and say, take my name off it now, because of the future events, what could happen. And let me tell you something, there's some horror stories out there, and I could have a lot of horror stories for 25 years of telling you of the wife leaving, the husband leaving, and the crap that they give each other with the credit cards where, sometimes it's suicidal. By saying, I can't take it no more, I got all her stuff, I got all his stuff, and they don't know what to do. And there are solutions to every problem, though, but that's the good news, because you got us here right now with it. And again, we help you when it comes to credit problems. If you're having a credit problem, there are solutions, but don't just stay stagnant to say, well, I have a credit problem, I'm not going to do anything. Do it. It will work. There are solutions to it. You can get yourself out of it. We have a question here.
Just explain that one. I'm going to extrapolate before I forget. Let's say you have a joint credit card, Mary and John with, say, Visa.
Okay.
Okay? Joint card. Now, can you get a separate card for Mary, a separate
Yes.
card from John, from Visa?
Yes, from Visa.
Or do you have to go to another credit card
No,
company?
no, and you want to. And the law states that they can't turn her down because of, let's say she has a part-time job. They can't say, well, we can't take her. They have to. The law states they have to take her, even if she's got a part-time job. You want a separate one. She wants a separate one, and not under the same number. Under different,
two different numbers.
Two different numbers.
Two separate accounts.
And let me tell you why this could be to your advantage too now. Not just because it's separate. If you have bad credit and she's bad credit, it could come to your advantages when the bill comes in at the end of the month. You could pay hers, she could pay yours. So, and it's easy because you're paying each other's bills on a credit card. Now, the other good news is if you have a $5,000 limit on yours and she has a Visa with a $5,000, well, now you have $10,000 total and not $10,000 together that it's going to affect you. Use your credit cards wisely because the sky is the limit. People are so much afraid of credit cards, they're afraid to use them, especially after they have credit problems and then they get back with good credit. The good news is if you have credit and understand it, sky is the limit. You can buy a car, you can buy a home. There's a lot of things you can do with credit cards that a person is unaware of because you're just used to getting that credit card, going to the store, taking money out and just buying things, and then you're in debt. Well, you know, there's solutions of how, but that's another story. First, we got to get you out of debt to do it properly with it.
Pearl Polto was our guest. We're broadcasting from irvhomer.com. My website, once again, www.irvhomer.com. You can email me, evilerv@irvhomer.com. We have Dr. Murray Needleman coming on within a few days, and if you have any questions for Dr. Murray Needleman, psychologist, please feel free to send us an email, and we'll get to your questions as he comes in. Once again, this technology is developed by RGH Computer Services for all your computer problems. And any questions on computers or setting up a format like this in your own office, your place of business, you simply give them a call at 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. Pearl Polto's toll-free number. Once again, Pearl, give the number.
1-800-876-CREDIT. If you wish to become a client of mine, all you have to do is call the 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D. Say, give your name, give your address, and say, send me out the information package. It's send out priority mail. It's all about me. It's all about the service. We do charge a fee, but we're giving a really big discount because of Irv Homer. So if you have a credit problem, don't procrastinate. The Tom from Florida, can you negotiate with the credit card companies, and what actually can and will they do if you do not pay them? I know it's unsecure credit. I owe a lot but can't pay it right now. The interest rate is already low. Will they put accounts on hold? I want to pay, I just can't now. I hear this every day now because of this credit crunch. Not people with bad credit, people with good credit. I've been listening to this every day that you want to pay, and yes, you can negotiate. Now, here's what you do. You call up the credit card company, and let's suppose you're paying $100 a month. And you say to the credit card company, I'm out of work, whatever your reason is. First of all, you ask for a supervisor. You don't talk to anybody else, no customer service, to the supervisor. You tell the supervisor, I'm having a little problem right now, but I want to stay in good standings with you, and I would like to negotiate something down or even take off the interest rate. If you take off the interest rate and I can only pay this much, can you accept it? Because if you can't accept it, you're going to leave me no choice but to do two things. Call up another credit card company to lower the score and transfer the amount, or I'm going to have to file bankruptcy. And I know you don't want that. So what you're doing is you're putting them into a corner instead of them putting you into a corner, and you have the upper hand. You have the upper hand because now you're saying to them, I'm in control and I have the right to pay you if I want to pay you. And what you can do, and because you said you're in Florida, guess what? You are in an exempt state, just like Pennsylvania. Exempt means they can't attach wages, they can't do anything, they can't hurt you. You can hurt them more than they can hurt you. The only thing they can hurt you with is your credit, and you can't because you're listening to here right now, and we're going to correct it anyway if you did have a credit problem. So that's the good news for you, Tom.
If you have a credit problem, you can call Pearl at her toll-free number, 1-800-876-CREDIT, 1-800-876-CRED, and she will lead you by the hand. Believe me, Next question on the chat
Next
room.
question. Bill from Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I filed for bankruptcy before they changed the laws in 2005. I have no debt. I keep getting information and getting a credit card. Is my credit now good? No. You know, everybody says file bankruptcy and you're right back where you started and you have good credit. Obviously, you're telling me a couple things. One, you haven't pulled a copy of your credit report to find out you have a credit problem, and that credit problem is everything that you filed under that bankruptcy is on your credit report. The second thing is you didn't have to file bankruptcy. One, again, you live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is an exempt state. The credit card companies could not come after you. You know, I went to a bankruptcy court one time. The whole room, 9 out of 10 people were filing it because of bill collectors harassing them. And obviously, I hope that you filed it because you were losing your home and you wanted to save your home, because that's the only reason why you should have, and not because they changed the laws on the bankruptcy. People file bankruptcy for the wrong reasons. Now, the bad news is bankruptcy, foreclosures, judgments, repossessions, charge-offs, profit and loss, everything could be removed from a credit report, but the word bankruptcy. Bankruptcy has to stay on from 7 years to 10 years, depending what you file. If you filed a Chapter 7, an example, 10 years, the law. If you filed a Chapter 13, 7 years is the law. Now, people come to me and they say, Pearl, I have a credit problem because I'm getting turned down, and I thought I was clean because I filed bankruptcy. Here's what I tell them. I can remove everything under the bankruptcy that was under your bankruptcy on your credit report but the word itself. And that's what you want. You want everything under that bankruptcy to be removed from your credit report, but the word cannot come off, and here's why. Because your next creditor that wants to give you credit and has to pull up your credit report is going to look at your report, and he's going to see all these negatives that was under the bankruptcy, and you don't want to show that. So just the word BK, he sees that you filed bankruptcy. Now, the good news is some banks, only some, a handful of banks will say, hey, this guy started over. We're going to give him some money. We're going to lend him some money because he can't file bankruptcy for another 6 years. Then you're really down in the dumps if you did have to file it again. So it all depends on the bank, depends on the loan, what you're taking, and how the bank is looking at you by saying, should we take a chance with this guy because he can't file bankruptcy again. So you better know what you're doing. Don't make the same mistake. And sorry to say, you did make a mistake the first time when you filed the bankruptcy.
So you're saying that from 1 to 7 years after a person files bankruptcy, they're dead in the credit market.
Yes, unless there's certain banks. There's certain banks that'll say, and there is certain banks that'll say, well, they started over. I'm going to trust them again that they can pay us because they can't file bankruptcy again, and then they got you.
But how is there any way you can appeal a bankruptcy so that you're going to have it short, like getting a commuted sentence or something? Instead of getting 8 to 10 for good behavior, you get out in 3.
You know, you must be, you're either in my office as I'm talking to my clients, because when you say, is there a shorter term, are you sure you're not in my office with a little microphone? Because, and here's why. Here's what he means by this, is this is what I'm saying. A lot of my clients, to get away from the bankruptcy or the bill collectors, I will say, file it. File the bankruptcy to get away from their house, to get away from this. And then after it's filed, you got all the bill collectors off you. And then stop and have the case dismissed. Because if you have this case dismissed, then I could actually dispute it, or you could dispute it, to be removed from your credit report. So it's a safe haven there to dispute with the credit bureaus to say, hey, remove this bankruptcy because it was dismissed. You're filing it to get everybody off you, and then everybody gets off you, even in a state that's not exempt like Jersey. And then all of a sudden, you have it great because I'm removing all the negatives anyway. Everything on a credit report, I'm going to repeat this, everything on a credit report can be removed and deleted. Do I like credit repair companies? I'm against credit repair companies. Do I like counsel services? I'm against counsel services. And as a credit expert, I'm against counsel services because you could do the same thing. You could negotiate with the creditors. Instead of the counsel services, if you did your homework, some of them are taking money. Some of them aren't even paying your bills. And then, if they put on your credit report counsel service, you're never going to get credit because everybody else is going to see it. I'm also against credit repair companies. I'm one of the people that tried to put them out of business years ago because they were charging people thousands of dollars to clean up the credit, and they didn't even know credit laws. So do your homework before. I always say do your homework before you take the test. If you have a credit problem, one, you could do it yourself. I have a lot of clients, but they consist all over. They're in the poor, the middle class, the rich and famous, doctors, lawyers, and movie stars. You don't have to be rich to have a credit problem. You don't have to be, if you're poor and need my service, call the toll-free number, 1-800-876-CREDIT. Say, Pearl, what do you charge? You're going to get a big discount. Send me out the credit information package. We do have a deadline to mail back. We want a big discount. But don't sit there stagnant, because it's one thing, even me, as a credit expert, as an author, when I see somebody and I'm educating someone, and I'm telling you, here's what you do. You're thirsty? I'm going to take you to the water. Drink it. And you sit there by saying to me, no, I think I'm going to starve myself, or I think I'm going to be thirsty. And there's mentality out there like this. It's like they want the abuse from the credit bureaus, or they want the abuse from the bill collectors when there's help out there.
Pearl Polto was our guest. Now, Pearl and I were discussing before the camera went on, they're raising the FDI, well, proposing in this new bankruptcy or this bailout, whatever you want to call it, they're proposing raising the FDIC insured money in banks from $100,000 to $250,000, which is absolutely, in my opinion, insanity. I don't know what your opinion is. But this is going to open up the floodgates for banks or lending institutions, in my opinion, that are going to be insured by the government.
I agree.
To give out more frivolous, bad loans.
I agree, and that's what's going to happen.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and as you said, I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. So put on your, look in your crystal ball and put on your wizard's hat, Pearl.
Well, if they were short 100,000, what did they do? Nothing.
Nothing.
So what are they going to do with 250,000 when they raise it?
So what do you see down the pike and after this election, or regardless of who
After
gets in?
this election.
Or how bad is this credit crunch going to be with people if they can't file bankruptcy, or if they can't? I mean,
I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little bit scared this election, and here's why I'm a little bit scared. The running mates of both parties, I'm scared, and here's why I'm scared. The running mate of the Democrat Party, he's in bed with all the creditors, and he's in lobbyists with all the banks. So it's pretty bad news. And this is where the lobbyists come in Washington with the credit card companies. The other side doesn't understand credit, so they're only for the rich people. So who's for the poor? Who's for the middle class? We're going to have this next 5 years. It's going to be the worst 5 years. You need to get educated. You need to correct your credit. You've got to get back into the credit game, because if you don't, you're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your credit cards. You're going to lose your stats. There's going to be more suicides on the list, and it's not going to stop there. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I never thought I would say this from 1989. And I said in 1989 there was going to be a depression in 1990 when it comes to credit cards. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
I would suggest off the record to read a copy of this weekend's New York Times. And I'm not, you folks know that I don't tell you who to vote for and who I'm going to vote for. I pull the curtain closed behind me, Pearl, so that you don't know who I'm going to vote for. But there was an interesting article on one of the candidates on the Republican side, and that was John McCain. John McCain is a heavy gambler. A full-page article. He's tied in with the Indian casinos. 20 people in his campaign are connected in some way with the Indian casinos, and he is a heavy gambler in which he gambles hundreds of dollars. In the New York Times, whether you believe the New York Times, a liberal or conservative newspaper, it's up to you. But I don't think they would print that if it weren't true. Naming names of the people that are on his campaign staff and naming the casinos in the Indian tribes in which he was actually had from the Department of Interior an Indian tribe stricken from the list that they were a legitimate Indian tribe.
So that could be good or bad if he's taking the risk with the people's money. If he's taking the risk with us, that could be good or bad. He's a gambler.
If he's taking a risk with my kids or my
or
your kids.
Exactly.
I don't want a crapshooter or a gambler playing games with politics. To the board there, Pearl.
Let's say John from Pemberton. Pearl, I recently did a 5-year opt-out for credit card application in the mail. I have a permanent form. I have the permanent form sitting here. Is it a good idea to do this? Do these actions affect my credit? Everything affects your credit score. That's one, John. I did a 5-year opt-out for credit card application. Well, you know what? It's not that what you did the 5-year or not. You can still pay credit cards for the rest of your life, it's not going to, win or lose. You need the credit. But everything affects your credit score. When you pay, your credit score, everybody thinks is one solid number. Whatever you do today, it could be changing tomorrow. If you have a 600 score today, by Friday you can have an 800 score or 400 score, depending what you do. This is so scary with this score. I really hope they change it one day, because everybody is going by the score, including you now, and you don't even understand it. So the idea is, do not apply for credit. Do not apply for something that you don't want, because if you do, your score is going to drop, especially if you get turned down, because then you have a credit problem. Don't apply again. If you do have a credit problem, clean up your credit. Everything that something is deleted, your score goes up higher and higher. Every time you do something, anything, your score is going to affect your score. So it's going to be, you can't blame the banks on this. You have to blame you, because you're in control of your own credit score, not the mortgage companies. You say to the mortgage companies, do not pull my report up. You say to the car dealers, do not pull my report up. So you understand where I'm coming from. When I take on a client, yes, I do pull your report up the first day. There's a point, it's 3 points. And then I write back to you and say all the negative accounts that have to be removed. And after I do that, then I start disputing to bring you up to date, your score. But I have rules, I have very strict rules. In other words, you cannot apply for credit as I'm doing it, because as I'm raising your score, you'll be lowering it without my knowing it. So you get all the strict letters from me from day one. And then until you're done, until you get the last letter that says, congratulations. We do charge a fee. My fee is $600. Anyone that wishes to become a client, my client, with this special offer, 1-800-876-CREDIT, you call up my toll-free and you say, leave your name, leave your address. I will ship this out, priority mail. It's all about me. It's all about the company. It's all about what we do. So you don't have to stay stagnant. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your friends and neighbors to listen to this, because you're not going to see this anyplace else. You're not going to see this education anyplace else but here or on one of my seminars. So you're getting a lifetime education right here.
Now, Pearl, I thought of something. Let's assume I want to buy a Lincoln, okay? And there's 4 Lincoln dealers in the close proximity one with the other. I go into the one dealer and I give him my credit. I said, check my credit. The guy says, that's fine. I said, well, I'm going to compare, your price with Joe Schmo down the street, who's another Lincoln dealer. And he runs a credit check on me too. It's the same credit card. It's the same credit company. So even though I go to buy the same automobile,
same credit
with
card
the same
company.
credit card company,
Yep. Your score
the
just
mere
got
fact
lowered.
that there's 4 hits on that doesn't make any difference that I didn't go from a Lincoln to a Honda to a Kia to a Lexus. It's those hits. They don't care where the hits came from.
They don't care. All they care is each one that you want to. Now, what can you do? You make a copy of your report before you go out and buy a car. But before you go out shopping, you go to these car dealers, you say, here's a copy of my credit report. I don't want you to pull it up. I don't want you to do nothing. I just want to see if I want the car first. If I want the car, then I know you have to pull it up under your policy, but I'm not going to go, because your 800 could go down to 400 in one day just because you went shopping around for a car. Does people know that? Who's going to knock on your door? You won't even know it.
So tell it again. Get your credit score first, and then go shopping.
Get your credit corrected first. If you know you have a credit problem or think you have a credit problem, first get your credit corrected. Then get a copy of your credit report, not going to creditreport.com where you have to pay something. And then then do your homework. Show everybody your credit report to say, I'm applying for this. Here's a copy of my credit report before you pull it up. Am I approved or denied? If they can look at it, they can tell you right there, you did your homework.
What about someone who may have 5 credit cards?
Okay.
You don't pay on 2 of them. How does that affect the other 3?
Well, let me tell you something. The credit card companies have a lot of power.
Right.
And just because you have 2 credit cards and you didn't pay on the 2, let me tell you what can happen. Those other 3 credit cards can look inside your report. They have the permission, and they could write you a letter by saying, we looked inside your credit report. We're closing you up. We're closing
even though
your
your credit with those
Doesn't
3
make a
credit
difference.
cards are good.
Doesn't make a difference. Now, what are they doing? Let's suppose you owed, let's say an example, American Express. You owed American Express $10,000. And they write you a letter by saying, we just looked at your credit report. We're closing your account. Well, what incentive are they giving you but to stop paying them? So, I mean, where's the common sense of the banks here? They're saying to you, I'm decreasing your score because we looked into your credit file, you're overextended, so we're decreasing your amount or we're closing it. What incentive are they giving you?
Pearl Polto, you got about 2 or 3 minutes to close out tonight's program. The microphone and television.
Well, you know, everybody out there, I don't care from here to California, if you wish to become my client or do it yourself, we offer 2 things. 1-800-876-CREDIT. You're going to get all the information on my service, how to correct your credit. I'm going to charge a fee of $600, not my normal $1,000, and that is for me doing the work. If you cannot afford that and you want to do it yourself, we do have the Credit Lifeline package, the same one that was sold on QVC. It's my book and 6 CDs. You're doing the work, you're writing all the letters, and all you have to do is make one simple phone call, 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D. Tell me when you call, this is where I heard it from, so I know, so you get your discount at the same time. And it's a pleasure to educate you as well, but you're going to need the education in the next 5 years.
And in case you want to write in a candidate for vice president instead of Sarah Palin, you can write in Pearl Polto. She's an independent, and I'll back her all the way. Pearl, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Broadcasting from IrvHomer.com. Once again, check out the website. It's brought up to date on a daily basis. It's IrvHomer.com. Email me at evilerv@IrvHomer.com. And RGH Computer Services will put this all together. They can do it for you. Their number is 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. Until the next time.